A pleasant morning to members of the media. Welcome to the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service weekly media briefing for Wednesday, 11th December 2019. I am Superintendent Mystar, Public Information Officer of the TTPS. We also want to welcome our viewers live on Facebook. Today our topic will be the whole aspect of finances and as it relates to the exchanging of the $100 bill note. Together with me on the media briefing this morning, I have the Director of the Financial Intelligence Unit, Mr. Nigel Stoddard, and also the Superintendent in charge of the Financial Investigation Branch of the TTPS, Superintendent Wendell. So we'll go straight into it. I'll invite Mr. Nigel Stoddard to lead us off this morning briefing.
Thank you, Mr. Mystar. Good morning, everyone. I'll just begin by giving a very brief overview of the FIU to get some clarification of the role and function of the FIU. I know there is some confusion in terms of what the FIU does and in terms of who the FIU actually is. The FIU is established by the Financial Intelligence Unit Act of Trinidad and Tobago. It's a department within the Ministry of Finance, and it's an administrative type FIU. In other words, we specialize in financial intelligence gathering and analysis. We are not responsible for the investigation of criminal matters, nor we do arrests or prosecution of persons for criminal matters. That is strictly within the remit of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service and the other law enforcement authorities. The FIU is responsible for the receipt of suspicious transaction reports from financial institutions and listed businesses, and those are entities that are captured under the Proceeds of Crime Act of Trinidad and Tobago. So that would include, for example, banks, insurance companies, security dealers, etc. In terms of the listed businesses, we are referring to real estate agents, motor vehicle sales, attorneys at law, accountants, private members club. As such, those are the entities that are captured under the Proceeds of Crime Act that have to report suspicious transactions to the FIU. The FIU had released notice to the financial institution and the listed businesses on the 9th of this month, reminding financial institution listed businesses of their obligations to report suspicious transaction reports once they are detected at the financial institution. This is the requirement from the FATF international standards in terms of recommendation 10, where entities must report suspicious transaction reporting. Just to give, and that requirement for the financial institution and listed businesses under Section 55A1 of the Proceeds of Crime Act and Section 22C3 of the Anti-Terrorism Act. Further, just to give a little background in terms of what, again, to educate the population in terms of what is money laundering. Money laundering is normally occur in 3 stages, where the first stage is the placement stage. In terms of what you look at is the placement of funds into the financial system. That fund is normally criminal proceeds, whether it be from fraud, corruption, robbery, kidnapping, any sort of criminal conduct, tax evasion or avoidance as the case may be, and the attempt to place it within the financial system is the first stage of it. Normally that is in a cash-based system in terms of the placement. The second stage normally is the layering stage, in where the person or the business entity tries to layer the funds. And it's called the layering stage, where they try to split the funds in terms of either wire transferring it to different jurisdictions, depositing it among several accounts as the case may be. The third stage and final stage is the integration stage, where having successfully layered the funds, what it comes out of the end product is either checks, as the case might be, or legitimacy to the funds, where someone can then go and purchase, whether it be property, land, vehicles, stocks, bonds, shares, as the case may be, with funds, which has now appeared to be legitimate. So that basically is what the money laundering is about and the stages that we will be looking at. Some of the indicators that, before I go there, the financial institutions, and they are, like I said, by law, are mandated to report suspicious transactions to the FIU. And once these are detected, they have 14 days, within 14 days, to report this to the FIU. Failure by the financial institution or the listed business to report suspicious transactions to the FIU is an offense and carries a penalty on summary conviction of $500,000 and to 2 years imprisonment, and on indictment to a fine of $3 million and a term of imprisonment of 7 years. So it's a requirement under the law for financial institutions to report suspicious transactions. What the general public should be aware of as well is that by law, under the Proceeds of Crime Act, financial institutions and listed businesses are required to obtain customer or client due diligence information. In other words, they would require that you provide them, in conducting a transaction, valid IDs, proof of address, source of funds. If it's a company, the certificate of registration, articles of incorporation, shareholders, beneficial owners, as the case may be, to justify the source of the funds that is being deposited at the financial institution. This is not a new requirement. It's something that is in the Act, and the financial institutions and listed businesses have been asking customers when they come to do transactions, at financial institutions or listed businesses, to provide that information. I would leave some of the reporting aspect in terms of Section 52 of the POCA to my colleague, Mr. Lucas, in his discourse. What I can say is that some of the indicators that have been published on the FIU website that pertain to cash would be in terms of client conducting cash transaction in an amount that is unusual compared to the amount of past history of the account. Clients starting to conduct frequent cash transactions in large amount that is outside of the normal activity. Cash deposits of musty or extremely dirty bills. Client makes transactions with cash that is consistently of a rounded off figure. In other words, if it is that you're a business person, as the case may be, and you are just depositing only 100,000, 50,000 rounded figures, then that may be an indicator that the financial institution listed business would look at in making a determination whether a transaction is suspicious or not to report to the FIU. In addition as well, if someone is making a deposit, they would need, like I said, to identify if it is that you sold a vehicle, that you're depositing cash and saying that you sold a vehicle, then there must be evidence of that in terms of who you would have sold it to, the vehicle number, what's the vehicle number, and as well as if you have the certified copy of the transfer that would verify that that is in fact what was the nature for the deposit of the cash that is being deposited at the financial institutions. Of note as well is that businesses that are not captured by the Proceeds of Crime Act, for example, a hardware store, for example, in terms of those type of businesses, or cash-based business that we refer to them as, they also have an obligation, and I would let Mr. Lucas go into some aspect of that obligation that they do have as well. Right? In closing, what I would like to say as well is that the FIU information can be reported to the FIU, not only by financial institutional listed businesses, but by individuals to the FIU, what we call a voluntary information report. It's not necessary that you put your name to the report. What is important is that the report to the FIU would have the relevant information in terms of the detail of the individual that you're suspected of laundering money, as the case may be. So what we would want is that a report, if someone is submitting a report to us, that they include additional information to specifically identify the individual. As you know, if a report comes with just John Smith, we may have over 100 John Smiths in Trinidad and Tobago, and we won't want to be the FIU targeting someone who is not the subject of a legitimate investigation by law enforcement or by the FIU. So what we require is some additional information to specifically identify that individual. Reports can be sent to the FIU by visiting the FIU website using FIUTT at gov. FIUTT at gov.tt, or you can post those suspicious reports to the FIU, to the director of the FIU at level 25, Tower D, the International Waterfront Complex, 1A Ryson Road, Port of Spain, or you can call to the FIU at 625-8351. However, we prefer that you use the either email or post. Again, for accountability's sake, we would want to know that a report is being made that to the FIU is legitimate and have some information that we can follow. So having said that, I would now turn over to my colleague, Mr. Lucas.
Thank you, Mr. Stoddard, and good morning to the media. Trinidad and Tobago has seen what can best be described as a frenzy with the exchange of the paper notes to the polymer notes. And there's a lot of things that are taking place which persons may be ignorant to the fact that they may be committing offenses. So it's my duty this morning to inform Trinidad and Tobago about some offenses that may be unwittingly being committed by persons as they try to exchange the paper notes for the new polymer notes. The Trinidad and Tobago Police Service and the Financial Investigations Branch, which I'm privileged to head, wishes to advise Trinidad and Tobago and members of the public of sections within the Proceeds of Crime Act which are consistent with things that are taking place, or which may be consistent with things that are taking place right now. Section 52, as my colleague alluded to, of the Proceeds of Crime Act, as amended, indicates that a person is guilty of an offense if he knows or suspects that another person is engaged in money laundering. He's also guilty of an offense if the information or other matters on which the knowledge or suspicion is based came to his attention in the course of his trade, profession, business, or employment, and he does not disclose that information or other matter to a police officer or the FIU as soon as reasonably practicable after it comes to his attention. So if you know you have reasonable cause to suspect that someone is laundering, you have a duty to report that information to law enforcement and to the FIU. There's a penalty that goes with failing to report, which I must disclose at this time. A person who commits the offense under Section 52 is liable on summary conviction to a fine of $250,000 and to imprisonment for 3 years. where such a person is employed in the service of the state as a public officer or on contract and commits such offense under Section 52, is liable on summary conviction to a fine of $500,000 and to imprisonment for 5 years. Further, the Financial Investigation Branch wishes to draw to the attention of citizens of Trinidad and Tobago Section 45 of the Proceeds of Crime Act, specifically Section 45(1). My colleague, Mr. Stoddard, would have spoken to you briefly on money laundering. Section 45(1) of the Proceeds of Crime Act deals with money laundering. And it says that a person who knows or has reasonable grounds to suspect that property is criminal property and who engages directly or indirectly in a transaction that involves that criminal property, or who receives, possesses, conceals, disposes of, disguises, transfers, brings into Trinidad and Tobago, or sends out of Trinidad and Tobago that criminal property, or who converts, transfers, or removes from Trinidad and Tobago that criminal property, commits the offense of money laundering. A person who commits an offense under Section 45 is liable on summary conviction to a fine of $25 million and to imprisonment for 15 years, and on indictment to a fine of $50 million and imprisonment for 30 years. A person who knowingly attempts, and this may touch and concern some persons who I indicated, may be unwittingly participating in money laundering. So a person who knowingly attempts, aids, abets, conspires, procures, or otherwise facilitates the commission of an offense under Section 45, money laundering, commits an offense and is liable on conviction on indictment to a fine of $25 million and to imprisonment for 15 years. So you may be wondering, what is criminal property? Criminal property means property which constitutes the benefit of a person from criminal conduct, or represents such benefit in whole or in part, whether directly or indirectly. For the purpose of the definition, criminal property, under Section 1, it's immaterial if the benefit from the criminal conduct was carried out by someone else, or whether the criminal conduct occurred before the date of commencement of the legislation which would have amended the Proceeds of Crime Act in 2014. It's also immaterial as to who carried out the criminal conduct. So once you are in possession of criminal property and you are attempting to conduct a transaction with that criminal property, you are also liable for money laundering and can be convicted for that offense. Further, the Financial Investigations Branch wishes to advise persons of the dictates of Section 38(1) of the Proceeds of Crime Act. 38(1) indicates that a custom officer, the rank of grade 3 or higher, a police officer, the rank of sergeant or higher, may seize from any person in accordance with this section and detain any cash in accordance with this section if it amounts to more than the prescribed sum. Further, a custom and excise officer or a police officer referred to in subsection 1 may seize and detain cash only where he has reasonable cause to believe that the cash directly or indirectly represents a person's proceeds of a specified offense. Specified offenses are listed in the schedule of the Proceeds of Crime Act and includes all indictable offenses. So you may be asking, what is the prescribed sum? The prescribed sum is $20,000, and it was created by the prescribed sum order of 38 of 2011. So any person in possession of $20,000 and more and cannot reasonably account for that money is subject to seizure by a custom and excise officer or a police officer, the rank of sergeant or above. So persons who are rushing to the financial institutions with large sums of money, if you are unable to account for that money that you are rushing to change, that money can be subject to seizure by police. I also wish to indicate to members of the public that persons are trying to exchange money and may be unable to do so, and they may be engaging in large cash purchases. So buying airline tickets to China for exorbitant sums, ordering large sums of hardware material and so on, with a view of canceling those orders so that the hardware dealer or the airline or the business would prefer a check or proffer a check onto them with a view of cleaning up their money so that they can simply go to the FI and deposit that check into an account. So this is something we are wary of as well and paying attention to. Also, persons may be engaging the assistance of other persons as smurfs in order to structure deposits into financial institutions. We are paying attention to that. So persons need to be careful. Do not accept money from anyone to deposit in any account in any financial institution. I have already indicated that anyone who possesses criminal property is subject to arrest and charge and possible conviction for money laundering, and it's irrespective of who committed the criminal conduct. So with these words, I would like to advise members of the public to be very, very circumspect in this period of time where we are making the exchange of dollar notes to polymer notes. The police service is paying close attention to what is taking place, and we will be going after persons who are bent on criminality and using the financial or trying to use the financial institution in order to clean up their dirty proceeds. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lucas. And in addition to what was said, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service wishes to advise members of the public that police officers are out in full force via foot and mobile patrols in and around all banking institutions' locations. And we are there to provide security and safety for persons who are actually conducting business transactions as it relates to the $100 bills. We also want to advise members of the public that there are strength in numbers. We are advising them to hire the necessary security firms to accompany them during their transactions. Also, to be extra vigilant of their surroundings. All right, I'll now open the floor for any questions that you may have.
Mr. Stoddard, Kyle Son of Summer 95.5. Can you say, since the introduction of the new polymer bills, have you all seen a report in increase in suspicious transactions?
The FIU continues to receive suspicious report transactions. As you know, that introduction was only made available on the 9th, if I'm not mistaken, by the central bank. So today being the 10th, the 11th, sorry. It's a bit of a short period, like I said. And financial institutions and listed businesses, they do have 14 days in which to make that they must make that suspicious transaction report.
The reason why I asked the question is because the Attorney General yesterday outside of the Senate, he made the statement that since the new introduction of the new polymer bills, that there has been an increase in suspicious transactions. Have you all seen anything such as?
Well, again, like I said, based on the date in terms of when the transactions can actually have started, which, like I said, where the central bank have provided the funds to the banks on the 9th. I can't say that definitely if there is an increase based on the information that we have presently. As you know, like I said, the banks and they have 14 days in which to report this suspicious transaction. So we are aware of certain transactions. We have continued to receive suspicious transactions, like I said, to do the analysis in terms of whether it's related specifically to the polymer notes. That is something that would have to be done at a later stage.
Hi, good morning. Shane Spurver from the Newsday newspaper. Superintendent Lucas. Well, I understand that First Citizens Bank is doing their part in trying to clamp down on suspicious money transfers, in which they've temporarily stopped direct deposits. And persons wishing to transfer the old notes to the new notes actually have to come in with their cash and in person explain how they got it. In addition to that, on the police side, what is done to ensure greater checks and balances as far as where the cash comes from?
Well, financial institutions, First Citizens have taken a bold step. I know that other financial institutions have also done so, but that source of funds declaration that persons are supposed to be filling out, that is to give the financial institution some indication as to where that money comes from, giving a person the opportunity to account for that money. Notwithstanding that, police officers, and specifically financial investigators from my department, are visiting financial institutions with a view of conducting checks on persons who may be coming to those institutions with large sums of money to get some indication from them as to where that money came from. So in addition to what the bank is doing, the police have also stepped up their due diligence in terms of trying to identify persons who may be bent on putting bad money into the system.
Well, we know that criminals are very resourceful and they're very quick at adapting. Without getting into too much details, have you all over the years or as of recently noticed criminals attempting to use legitimate businesses or established businesses to try and wash their money or launder their money, as the case may be?
Well, we have been hearing stuff on the ground as to what is taking place, and it's precisely why we are having this briefing this morning to alert persons who may be so inclined to accept offers from criminals to launder their money.
Any other questions? All right, we also want to remind persons that you can make any report on our TTPS app. That app is trending, and it's a very good avenue to put information on that particular app. Remember, you can go on also anonymously. There's also a SOS feature on the app, so please download our TTPS app and you can make your necessary reports. Also to various numbers that you can use to call for emergency purposes. Just to reiterate to the public, it's 999-911-555-800 All right. So thank you very much. I want to thank the Director of the Financial Intelligence Unit, Mr. Nigel Stoddard, and also Superintendent Wendell Lucas, in charge of the Financial Investigation Branch, for gracing us with their presence. Thank you very much. Have a blessed week.